Shalom and welcome back to Israel with Aline. We are now in Bethlehem and we can see from in the background that beautiful city is Jerusalem. See how close we are to Jerusalem. But on today's tour, we're going to get to know a little more about the daily life and living here in the city of Bethlehem, its markets, its food, and also at the end we have a very special place called the Shepherd's Field. Yes, those same shepherds who received the announcement of Jesus' birth. So if you're ready, let's get started. Now let's go to the historic center of the city of Bethlehem. We're heading to the area near the Church of the Nativity, and we're going there especially to learn about Christian handicrafts. The Christians of Bethlehem have been known for centuries for the works they make from olive wood. So let's go there now. Bethlehem is a vibrant city with lots of commerce, pilgrims, great food, and so much happening here every day. So it's very different to walk through the streets here and see most of the shops closed, the handicraft stores closed. I mean, it's sad to see the city of Bethlehem like this, but not everyone has stopped. So I do want to show you a Christian handicraft shop that is still open, so come with me. We're now in a workshop that produces these beautiful works made from olive wood. And when the work is done with olive wood, the tree isn't cut down to get the wood. Instead, after the olive harvest, what do? They have to prune the tree. The pruned parts are used to make the works of art, so it's really nice to see the ecological aspect of preserving nature and preserving the trees, which are sometimes centuries old, from which they make their pieces. They have now invited us to enter the shop and see how the pieces look once they're finished. And look at the beautiful works they have here. There really is something for everyone, but I think the most beautiful thing of all is seeing the centuries-old Christian tradition here. Still alive, and the main source of income for the Christians of Bethlehem is tourism and handicrafts, so they had a very, very difficult year. They are counting the days until the border reopens, but it's beautiful to see that despite everything that's happening, they are still here, still working, still standing strong. Not the whole city of Bethlehem is dormant. Yes, there are areas like this market we're walking through that are local commercial zones, and they are still operating. There are some really cool typical things here that I wanted to show you. So, for example, there's a handicraft store here. For instance, there are the kefias, which are the scarves that men wear on their heads. And there are the pashminas, which are the scarves that women use either around their necks or in their hair. But the most unique thing I found in this store, look at this. I'm even zooming in. Do you know what this is? This, everyone, is for a camel. So for anyone who has a camel at home and wants to buy it, this goes on top of the camel, and these are bags to carry things on the sides, and this one is also handmade. Bethlehem, but it's not from the city of Bethlehem. This handicraft is actually made in the Gaza region and brought here to be sold. So does anyone here own a camel? It's a good place to shop. And in the middle of all the shopping, when you want to take a little break to rest, you can buy some sweets and delicious breads. For example, there are these here called mamulim, which are filled with dates. There's a bit of everything, so you can buy a little tray here, eat as you go, and continue your stroll. And as I keep walking down the street, I saw so many cool foods. For example, here there are a lot of pickles, including hot pink pickled cauliflower. Look, there's also something we find in Brazil, like rotisserie chicken. They're making it here. But there's a special dish that isn't available all year round, which is special for this time of year, these pancakes called katayas, which are a specialty during Ramadan. So this week Ramadan started, which is the holy month for Muslims, when they fast during the day and eat at night. And one of the special things they eat are these pancakes filled with sweet cheese, also cinnamon and other spices on top. Here in Bethlehem, there is also a Muslim population, so Ramadan Kareem, a good Ramadan to everyone who celebrates, and let's continue our tour. After seeing so much food at the market, we decided to stop for lunch. We're starving, so we came to a traditional restaurant here in the city of Bethlehem from a family that is actually Christian, so let's go to the tent. So we've arrived and we're going to eat a traditional meal from this region, and everyone, this is the appetizer. Yes, this is just the appetizer, then the main course will come. There's dessert. I mean, it's a lot of food. So the tradition is to start with several salads, as they call them. So for example, here there's cabbage salad, corn salad, there's matbura, which is this one made of tomato and bell pepper. And it's a bit spicy, guys. There are some things here that are a little spicy. Of course, there are olives. You can't go without them. And actually around me, I can see some olive trees. There's garlic paste, there's yogurt, there's traditional salad. And of course, there's pita, Arabic bread, Syrian bread, pita bread. So now we're going to take our pita and start eating because I'm already starving. So let's start with the labne. Betayavo, enjoy your meal. I told you there was still more food coming. The main course has arrived and we can see an international influence in the cuisine. I mean, there are French fries here, but we can also see kebab, which are these meatballs. And also under this bread, we see some skewers. There's lamb skewer and also chicken skewer. And after all this feasting, there's still more, guys. Don't worry, I didn't eat everything by myself. The crew here ate very well too. And then, to help digest all this, we have some tea. In Arabic, they call it chai. So here we have a black tea bag, but the cool part comes next. I mean, we put the black tea bag in, and then we add this, which they give along with it. This is an herb called maramia in Arabic. And for those who like it, there's also sugar. One interesting thing is that here, using sweetener isn't very common, so usually they just use sugar. In some places you can even ask for sweetener, but here they really use sugar. And to top it off with even more sugar, there are the sweets called baklawa, which are these pastries made of puff pastry filled with nuts. So everyone, I'm going to finish my meal here, and we still have one more amazing place I want to show you after this, which is really close by. We'll walk there, it only takes 5 minutes, and we'll be there after our dessert. So once again, beat Avon, enjoy your meal. I want to tell you the story that takes place in these beautiful fields around where we are. This story happened about 3,100 years ago in the time of Ruth the Moabite, who came to the land of her mother-in-law, Naomi. And Ruth, she will be harvesting here in the fields around Bethlehem when she meets Boaz, and from their union a son will be born named Obed. Now, this lineage is extremely important because who is the great-grandson of Ruth and Boaz? King David, everyone, one of the greatest kings in the history of Israel, came about because of a woman harvesting here in these fields. So these fields are important. We're talking about more than 3,000 years ago. And as it is told in the Bible in Matthew chapter 1, the one who is a descendant of David is Joseph. And because of the census, Joseph will come to Bethlehem to be counted in this population count, and that's why Jesus will be born in the city of Bethlehem. See how the biblical story fits together. So actually the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem is thanks to Ruth, who comes to glean in these fields. So we have some of the most important biblical characters who pass through here. And speaking of the birth of Jesus, let's go up here a bit and see the site of the shepherd's field and also the shepherd's grotto. Let's go! We are in the shepherd's field, but let's talk a little about who these shepherds were. Last Sunday here on the channel, we saw the place where Jesus was born right here nearby inside the city of Bethlehem. When Jesus is born, who are the first people to receive the announcement of his birth? They are shepherds who will be here at night with their sheep, with their flocks. It's interesting that it's the shepherds who receive this announcement, since shepherds were some of the simplest people of that time. They are here at night shepherding their sheep, and the angel goes and announces to them the birth of Jesus. And they leave from here and go to meet Jesus, Maria, and Jose inside the Nativity Grotto. But there are also caves here, as we already mentioned. At that time, shepherds kept their flocks inside caves. And not only that, many times the caves could be used as houses, for storage, for everything they needed, since in this region wood is not so abundant for building, and the climate here, folks, can be really, really cold. See, it's spring now and I'm still wearing a heavy coat, so in the winter it's better to be protected underground. So now let's go into a shepherd's cave that has remained untouched since that time. The stairs were added after the time of Jesus, but inside the cave it has been preserved in its original way. And that's one of the things I find most fascinating about visiting the Holy Land, that we can literally enter a time tunnel. We can see what the landscapes were like, what the places were like, the architecture and the lifestyle of the people at that time. As we mentioned, these caves were used for storing food and animals. People could also sleep inside here. I mean, really a big part of life happened inside here. Here we can see archaeological remains. This place was a gigantic complex of monasteries and churches from the 5th century, from the Byzantine period. This is archaeological evidence that shows this place has been a site of Christian worship since that time. And that's why it's important when we visit a place here in the Holy Land to look for the biblical narrative and also look at archaeology and see how things fit together so we can better understand the events from the time of Jesus. Notice that we are walking on the original floor of one of these churches and see how well preserved it is. It's a simple floor, meaning it's not luxurious with designs, but we can see here the stones from the original mosaic. This gigantic complex, which is called the Shepherd's Field, most of it has been preserved as open land and also as archaeological remains, as we saw before. But there is a church built here that I think is beautiful. Although it is a modern church, it has a lot of meaning. So let's go inside together now. And inside here, the first thing you notice is the ceiling. We can see that they made most of it out of glass. So we can look up at the sky and see the stars, like for example, the story of the Star of Bethlehem, the Star of the Annunciation. The architect who designed this entire church is named Antonio Berluzzi. He built many of the churches here in the Holy Land, and around the altars we can also see representations of the main biblical passages here in Bethlehem. Here we can see the angel announcing to the shepherds, and we can see their sheep. We can also see in another painting the birth of Jesus, which also took place inside an animal cave, but in the center of the city of Bethlehem. For those who haven't seen it, I'll leave the link up here to the video where we also get to know the cave of the Nativity. We have now entered another cave from the time of Jesus. This was also a shepherd's cave where shepherds could live and where animals were also kept. And we can see many interesting things here. So the soot again is because of the candles and the passage of time, since this place still has prayers and candles being placed here nowadays. And look how amazing this device is. It's made of two pieces. So this piece here, it is placed on top of the other one, and the wheat was put on top here. This piece was rotated on top of the other, and the friction of the stones would grind the wheat and produce flour. The flour was made into bread, and that's exactly how we reconnect with the name of the city, Bethlehem, the house of bread. Let's keep walking and looking at the grotto here. You can see how low it is. You have to remember that people at that time were also short. But look here at the height of the place. And I want to show you one last thing that's in this place, which isn't from the time of Jesus, but from the Byzantine period. It's this floor here. It's the same floor we saw when we were walking down below, when I told you those were remains of Byzantine churches and monasteries. There was a part where the floor was so damaged that they couldn't preserve the site there, but they decided to bring the stones here and do a kind of recycling, or as we call it in archaeological terms, spolia. So they brought it here and they rebuilt this church with the floor from a church that is 1,500 years old. Isn't that cool? And here next to the sheep in the shepherd's field, I want to say goodbye to you. Remind you to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos that are posted. A kiss, shalom, and see you next time.